Me now is Nigel Farage. He, of course, is the former leader of UKIP, an MEP here, and the chair of the Europe and Freedom Direct Democracy Group. Welcome to you.
Good morning.
Mrs May says, give us a deal I can sell. Do you think there is a deal that she can sell?
All looks a bit desperate, doesn't it? I mean, going along and begging. I mean, why on earth did we ever agree to a set of negotiating terms whereby we would have to meet their three demands before they would come to us and talk about trade? So from the start, we've been in trouble. I would say it's rather like the UK's a mouse and the EU's a cat. They're playing with us. What I am certain of is that here in Brussels, they don't want a deal. They want to string this out for as long as possible. They're now even intervening in British politics by treating Jeremy Corbyn here yesterday as if he was some sort of rock star. The only hope, and there is one hope, I think, and that comes in the shape of Mrs Merkel. There's big pressure now coming on Mrs Merkel from German industry. You know, they have a 30 billion trade surplus with the United Kingdom every single year, and a lot of German companies are saying, for goodness sake, you know, break this deadlock. And if Mrs Merkel says the time has come to move on and talk about trade...
Well, she did say things were sounding a lot more hopeful.
As I say, she's the one person that could break the deadlock.
Why do you say they don't want a deal here in Brussels?
Oh, because the political imperative here is that no country can be allowed to leave this union without being seen to be punished. And that matters more to them than jobs and growth.
But are you just talking about Brussels bureaucrats?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you're not talking about the national members of the European Union.
No, absolutely not. And look, in the last week, we've seen the Hungarian finance minister, we've seen the Danish finance minister. There are now voices around Europe saying, come on, let's move on and have sensible negotiations. The blocker is Brussels itself.
And you, as the man who led the Take Back Control Brexit campaign, do you want a deal? Do you want an agreement?
Look, of course, a sensible free trade arrangement is in all of our interests. Of course I want that. But what I don't want is to lose years and years and years negotiating, having transition deals, and effectively closing ourselves off from other trade opportunities with the 85% of the world economy that's not in the Eurozone.
And do you accept, too, that Britain does have obligations, if you like, a divorce bill? I mean, they've got your pension to pay for.
Oh, well, that's easy. That's easy. The pension bill's easy. There are 22,000 British people, nearly all European Commission employees and a couple of hundred MEPs. And what you do is you take those pension liabilities off the European Union's books and deal with that at home, because that makes it a nice, clean settlement. We do owe money up until 2020 because we signed up for a 7-year spending framework, and we should absolutely honour that because we agreed to it. Against that, we've got billions invested in the European Investment Bank. One nets off against the other. Let's just call it quits.
So you don't agree with spending even 20 billion, as Mrs May suggested?
No, I don't. There's absolutely no need to. You know, the treaty is very clear that once we've left, we have no further obligations. I do accept on pensions there's a liability, which is why I say let's take that off the EU's books.
But if it comes to it, and clearly what they're disagreeing with at the moment is the level of payment, would it be a disaster if, in order to have a clean break, if you like, Britain does end up paying 30, 40, 50 billion?
Quite frankly, honestly, the thought of Britain having to pay 40 billion sterling to leave this place, I mean, it's akin to blackmail. We should have no part of it.
Now, you say they're treating Jeremy Corbyn like a rock star. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, they told us we couldn't negotiate with the other 27, and in turn, they shouldn't be negotiating with the SNP or Jeremy Corbyn, but they are. If they could sow political...
I mean, he just came here as a leader of a socialist party.
No. He was treated as if he was a monarch, you know. I mean, it was remarkable. They would love to sow division in British politics. They would love Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister, because Labour's position now is they will accept any deal.
What about no deal? We're hearing David Davis is going to present on Halloween an optimistic scenario. What do you think the consequences of no deal would be? Well,
clearly borders, clearly how you measure customs, tariffs, things like that, which would come into play. So we've got to find technical ways around that. Beyond that, no deal means we can start doing business with the rest of the world. I'm not frightened of no deal, but I'd much rather we had a grown-up free trade agreement.
I mean, you know, having been here in the European Parliament for so long, that actually our trade with Europe is pretty important, isn't it? We don't just want to walk away from that.
Look, of course it's important, but the rest of the world's important too. You know, Brexit was about giving us the opportunity to be a genuine global player. Now, if they don't want to come to a sensible accommodation, then we'll reach a point by December where the Prime Minister will have to say, here is a deadline, and if you do not come to us with sensible trade that point, we simply are leaving. So if David Davis is making the right contingency plans, that will strengthen our hand.
I mean, Brexit, as you made clear with that famous poster, was also to a certain extent about immigration.
Yes.
Now, the only bit of immigration that our relations with Europe directly controls is immigration from within the European Union. That, again, is an unresolved issue of the nature of European Union citizens. Do you think that we need to mutually guarantee each other's rights?
Oh, look, I think that for the 3.5 million EU citizens living in the United Kingdom, they all came legally. We may have accepted too many, but they all came legally, and of course their rights should be guaranteed. But we cannot have the European Court of Justice giving them superior rights.
That does mean that I think there are 3 million European citizens in the UK. There are only 1 million,
if that,
UK citizens in Europe. So that means accepting a substantial permanent population of European foreigners, doesn't it?
I don't think we can change that because, you know, for a country to retrospectively...
What should we change it ideally, do you think?
Well, I don't believe in retrospectively changing law. All of those people who came from Romania or Poland or wherever it was...
Or France.
Yeah, all France. But they all came legally. So, no, I'm not for turning the clock back. We accept where we are, but we move on to a different basis hereafter.
And hereafter, do we say effectively that Britain's doors are closed to Europeans?
Not closed, no. We're quite happy to give people work permits. You know, if people want to come and give us their skills and we can use them, that's fine. What we don't do is give people an automatic right to residence.
Now, you used to work in the City of London. How do you feel when you hear the head of Goldman Sachs going to Frankfurt and saying he's going to be spending a lot more time
I've never heard such nonsense in all my life. Frankfurt is number 11 in terms of the most desirable financial locations to be in, and London is number 1. And hopefully it'll stay at number 1.
It's not going to, with companies like Goldman Sachs, shift a lot of work.
Goldman Sachs are playing a big political game. You know, they love the European Union. For the first time in their history, they can actually write the rule book for their own industry to keep medium-sized competitors out. We should not be held hostage by Goldman Sachs.
As a veteran of Europe, which maybe not how you like to describe yourself, but it's a fact, what do you reckon, deal or no deal at the end of this?
It feels to me that no deal is more likely than a deal, but I repeat the point, the one hope is that Mrs. Merkel says, right, let's grow up, let's start talking about trade.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed. Well, we can go now to